So
Right.
spirituality is universal.
Yeah.
Like every spiritual leader, every prophet had to communicate. And the first thing about communication is that you must come down to the level of the audience,
Yeah.
the
Absolutely.
listener.
Absolutely.
So that's what they did.
Yeah.
So what they did was they dressed up the eternal principles in a language that the audience would understand.
Of that time, of a
Of that
specific
time,
period, of a
yes.
specific location, right?
So every religion is a mix of eternal principles of life and certain norms that were applicable at that time, but they are not universal.
Namaste and welcome to episode 19 of our show on the Bhagavad Gita with Srimati Jaya Rao, renowned teacher of Vedanta and also my mother. If you've been enjoying the show so far, please don't forget to subscribe as you go on listening. Jayaji, one of the things when I was researching for this week's episode, I stumbled across this really nice quote by Gandhiji, actually, when he was talking about the Bhagavad Gita. And he says, when doubts haunt me, when disappointments stare me in the face, and I see not one ray of light on the horizon, I turn to the Bhagavad Gita and find a verse to comfort me. And I immediately begin to smile in the midst of overwhelming sorrow. My life has been full of external misfortunes, and if they have left no visible, no indelible scar on me, I owe it all to the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. This quote really hit home because I feel like so many times in life, when you're staring down the abyss, there's some thoughts, some ideas from the Gita uh, will come and save you almost. Don't you think that? Do you feel like that you've experienced that in your life in a way similar to Gandhiji experienced in his life?
Yes. But you have to do the study before.
Yeah,
You put in the hard work, meaning hard work in the sense that you put in thought earlier,
of course.
and then it comes back.
Yeah,
And it's an amazing thing because the Bhagavad Gita actually empowers you. It empowers you with knowledge. It it gives you knowledge of the world, it gives you knowledge of yourself, your resources, how you can leverage your resources to overcome obstacles and to obtain success. And knowledge is the thing. Because ignorance is what makes you fearful, it makes you weak, it victimizes you. And the moment you get knowledge, you suddenly feel empowered.
yeah,
And that smile on the face is, the word that he used, smile on the face, is
Yeah.
so relevant.
Yeah.
Because all of us are like grief stricken. We are feeling sorry for ourselves.
yeah,
We are feeling sorry for the fact that we have to face challenges. But that's actually, it's like a paper tiger. And it just frightens us.
yeah,
And you've got to have the strength within to stand up to it
yeah,
and say, I won't go down. And because we ourselves weaken ourselves. We say, I can't do it. We say to ourselves, I'm weak. I can't stand up to it. And so that is what is going to happen. Whatever you think happens. But if you think in the midst of challenges that, no, I can do it, and you get energy and vitality and the strength and the cheer to face up to it, and then you realize it's just vanished.
And I think one of the most important things the Bhagavad Gita and any spiritual knowledge, I would say, not limiting to the Gita alone, but any real, genuine spiritual knowledge, right? It helps you understand the nature of the world. It helps you understand yourself and the relationship between the two, right? I think at some point, somewhere, all the problems that we face in life are as a result of not understanding either the nature of the world or ourselves or the relationship between the two. right? Don't you think all our life's problems boil down to that in a very, uh, in a simplistic way, right?
Yes,
You're expecting things from the world when the world doesn't work that way, right?
it's not
Obviously,
forthcoming.
you'll get burnt, or you're expecting things of yourself when you've not put in the effort, or you have a certain inclination, but you feel like you deserve something else. I mean, at some level, all those issues, boil down to that.
Yes. And one of the things is that we expect people around us and the world around us to cater to us.
Yep.
And that's not going to happen. And the first thing we need to understand is that there are no freebies in life. Then nothing comes to you without hard work,
Yep.
including internal strength. And the other thing about the Bhagavad Gita is that it's so universal in its approach,
Yeah.
so liberal. There are no commandments, there are no do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
And you are left to yourself to figure out how to live life. And that is so empowering because it's also liberating in a sense.
Yeah.
And that is one of the first things that appeal to me.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you spend half your time just resisting external pressure.
Yeah. And you actually bring up an important point about, being able to figure stuff out for yourself. And I feel like while the Bhagavad Gita is fundamental to, is the philosophy of Hinduism, actually. It forms the philosophical foundation of Hinduism as a religion. But like you said, there's a universality to the teachings, right?
Yes.
And if you go across every faith, when you cut to the core of every single religion, they all say the same thing.
Yeah, it's all the same.
Right? So that's what got me to think, how do you see religion and spirituality as different from each other? Are they different? And if they are different, then what is the difference between them?
Yeah, see, spirituality is the eternal principles of life. It's a compilation of these. So they are universal. So
Right.
spirituality is universal.
Yeah.
But in presenting, like every spiritual leader, every prophet had to communicate, and the first thing about communication is that you must come down to the level of the audience,
Yeah.
the
Absolutely.
listener.
Absolutely.
So that's what they did.
Yeah.
So what they did was they dressed up the eternal principles in a language that the audience would understand.
Of that time, of a
Of that
specific
time,
period, of a
yes.
specific location, right?
So every religion is a mix of eternal principles of life and certain norms that were applicable at that time, but they are not universal. So Vedanta segregates them as Sanatana Dharma means eternal principles,
Yeah.
and Yuga Dharma means that which is applicable at that moment but not universal. Now, what the listeners did, or the followers later did, was that they mixed the two up. And they said, no, mine is different from yours. And they focused on Yuga Dharma, which is even more catastrophic.
Yep.
Because that which was applicable, say, 600 years ago or 2000 years ago, is no longer valid now.
Correct.
For instance, Buddha highlighted kindness, highlighted tenderness, highlighted these qualities because at that time there was a lot of violence.
Yeah.
Now, you can't use the same principle now in an era where, like wars are happening. You can't just reach out and say, be kind. It's not applicable all the time. Yes, it is as a principle,
Yeah.
but how you apply it is different.
Yes.
So now when the followers took the Yuga Dharma as Sanatana Dharma, as applicable for all times, then the problems came up.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I remember when Adi Shankaracharya also came to the fore in India, a lot of it was because those leading religion were ended up focusing on the grammar and the recitation of the verses, and they forgot the actual message of what they were talking about, right? Isn't that what happened to some extent in Hinduism at that point of time?
Yes, actually, when he spoke in Bhajagovindam,
Yeah.
he says grammar rules.
Mm.
He doesn't mean literally grammar rules,
No, of course not. Yeah.
but materialistic aspects.
Yeah.
And that is what we are focusing on even today.
Yep.
So, throughout the ages, masters have been telling us focus on the essentials
Yep.
and not on other peripheral things.
Yeah.
But now we have dropped the essentials, not only dropped them, we don't even know them.
Yep.
And we just focus on peripherals.
Yeah. And, it reminded me of there's this one story about the teacher who was pointing to a star, and the student gets fixated on the finger instead of looking at the star. And I feel like maybe like religion is a lot. That's what's happening to religion a lot, right? I mean, at the end of the day, religion and religious practices are supposed to take you closer to the truth, to the source, to God, whatever it is that you know you would like to call it. But if we end up getting caught up in the rituals and practices, then you never get to where you want to go, right? You get caught in this um, continuous circle in a sense.
Yes, but you see, as a reaction to that, people are dropping the rituals itself,
Yeah,
which is not necessary
correct.
because they have a role
Hmm.
in one's spiritual development.
Yeah.
So, what we need to do is to retain maybe the rituals and the practices and understand the meaning behind it.
Exactly.
So, then you shift your focus to the understanding rather than the details of the rituals.
Yeah.
And you can modify the rituals according to your needs or limitations, let's
Yeah.
say. See, you have a limitation over physical doing.
Yeah.
You have no limitation over thought.
Correct.
So, as long as your focus is on the thought, and as you develop spiritually, you no longer need the externals.
Yeah.
So, as long as that understanding is there, you're fine. But when you stick to the ritual without understanding, and that is what is happening today in every religion.
Yeah. Across the board.
Across the board.
Yeah.
And particularly among us, because we have so many rituals, so many practices, so many wonderful things that are happening as part of our culture. It's a pity that we not only stick to it, but we make that materialistic. For instance, Diwali has become a materialistic thing. You buy.
Yeah.
Ganesh Chaturthi has become about Bollywood numbers being played on those 10 days, which is not the meaning behind it. So we need to get back to the essentials and then understand. Like, for instance, there is this thing now about bindi. Okay? What is the significance of the bindi? Nobody understands.
Yeah.
It's not just a cultural thing, it's not a religious thing. It's the original thing is that in the morning when you leave the home, before you leave the home, because you have to go out and work, you can't be doing puja all the time. So you do a morning puja, and the bindi was applied, the kumkum was applied as a reminder that eventually I have to get there. And during your work, to prevent you from getting involved with what you're doing and to remind you, they devised this wonderful thing of everyone wearing bindis or tilak, so that when you see it on somebody else's forehead, you remember that this is my motive in life. And now it's completely forgotten.
Yeah.
So whether we root for the bindi or root for against the bindi, it's immaterial because we don't understand.
Yeah, and there's so many great saints that India has produced, and one of them who fought very much to expose the hypocrisy of religion and to bring out the real spiritual values was Sant Kabir, right? And I remember in school we had to memorize the dohas, and back then it was quite a miserable experience. But because we didn't really understand the message,
Yeah.
right? But now when I was reading the messages, the dohas, and it makes so much sense, and it speaks so much truth. There's so much value in his ideas, and it he lived at a time when there was a lot of conflict uh, between religions and all of that. But he was able to hold the mirror up to society and say, you talk a lot of great things, but in your actions and your thoughts, you're so far away from, what you actually claim to be doing. And, some of the dohas I'll read out and the meaning, and then maybe you can, um, just elaborate a little bit on, the Vedantic perspective that he speaks about, right? So in one doha, Sant Kabir says, "Pothi padbad jag mua, pandit bhaya न कोई, ढाई आखर प्रेम का, पढ़े so pandit होए." And the meaning is that the world has died reading books, yet no one became wise. But one who understands the 2.5 letters of love, that one is truly learned.
Yes, so what he's doing is bringing it down to the essentials.
Exactly.
So his knowledge even of the scriptures, and many masters have said that you can study the Bhagavad Gita backwards and forwards, you could master the Upanishads, but if you don't have this basic affection, love for people, what's the point? Because you don't see oneness, and that oneness is the core of spirituality. When the Krishna gives the test of perfection, how do you know you've developed? 4 verses in chapter 6, he harps on it. One who sees himself in others and others in himself is a spiritually evolved person.
Yeah.
So that's what Kabir is saying.
Yes.
If you don't have the basics of love, what is the point? And it is verses like this. It's Kabir himself. Like, no one knows whether he belonged to one religion or the other.
Yeah.
Till this day, nobody knows which religion he belonged to, because he went by both, all religions,
Yes.
and he criticized the practices of everyone.
Exactly.
So no one can, in fact, everybody accepts it.
Yeah. And see, that's what we were talking about, right? When you are truly spiritual, you can belong to everybody and sometimes belong to no one.
Nobody, yeah.
So I think that's what happened with Sant Kabir. And this doha is such a beautiful example of what we're talking about, because you can memorize the Gita, the Quran, the Bible, whatever it is, and no matter how well you know it backwards and forwards, if you don't live up to the principles of it, it's pretty worthless, right?
So the same thing, so many others. Sant Tukaram, for instance,
Correct.
came from a lower caste community.
Yeah.
And the learned people of that time said, you are not allowed to study the Bhagavad Gita. But he got there. He got to enlightenment when all these people are just stuck with books and knowledge. And so in the end, what they did was they said, you can't have the books. So they took his books and threw them in the Indrayani river. And in fact, they helped him, because that's when he realized the knowledge is not in the books. He's got it himself.
Yeah.
So that final stage of realization came when he understood it's already within me. And then he goes to his wife and says, and that wife has been criticizing him and complaining about him throughout his life. But he goes to the wife and understands, I owe my life to you. So I'm going to Vithala. Will you come with me? She says, but who will look after the cows? She doesn't even say children. So he's done his bit and he goes. So there are so many stories of people who have attained enlightenment by their own effort. Some with the help of the scriptures, some without the help of the scriptures. Sant Jnaneshwar, for instance, wrote the entire Gita. So that is called Jnaneshwari. So and Kabir puts it in a very simple way. So it's very attractive.
In a sense, it also he also talks about how if we're trying to find satisfaction through external pursuits, we will never find it. So yes, I mean, he may be talking about pilgrimage and stuff, but even from a material point of view, right? We've spoken about this. If we are ignorant of our fullness, so if we don't look within and you keep on looking outside, it's like, you're chasing shadows, right? So I think that's what the verse talks about, no?
Yes.
So another verse where Sant Kabir uh, talks about is, he says, Kankar Pathar जोड़ के मस्जिद ले बनाए ता चढ़ी मुल्ला बाग दे बहिरा हुआ खुदाए. So the meaning is, you build a mosque with stones and shout loudly, but has God become deaf? And I don't think this is about mosques. Again, it could be a mosque, a temple, a church, or any place of worship. But I think what Kabir is talking about is we make such a big external show of our religiosity when actually the pursuit is within, and it's a quiet pursuit, right?
Yes.
It's a journey within. You don't have to show the world with a mala, or the clothes that we wear and all of that. It's about where your thoughts are, where your focus is,
Yes.
right? So what are your thoughts on that, the principle of that?
Absolutely. Like there's a story of two friends who meet, childhood friends who meet after many years, and they ask each other, "What are you doing? Where are you going?" So one guy says, "I'm going to the temple, and I go every day, every evening to the temple." And the other guy feels ashamed. He says, "I'm going to a bar, I'm going to enjoy myself." And they part, and they keep doing this. And then they both die at the same time, apparently. And it so happens that the guy who goes to the bar and is enjoying himself every day, he is the one who goes to heaven.
Okay.
And the fellow who's going to the temple goes to hell. So that guy who goes to the temple, he says, "This is not fair. I worshipped God every day." And that guy who's having a jolly good time, he goes to heaven. So apparently God says, it is not where you are that matters. You went to the temple, but every day you were thinking, "Oh, my friend is having a good time there." So your thoughts are where he is. Whereas the other guy who was going to the bar and having a good time, every day he said to himself, "Oh, my friend is in the temple. What a fine thing he's doing." So his thoughts were in the temple. So what happens to you is where your thoughts are, not where your action is.
Yeah. So I think with that we can move to our study of the Gita. We're on chapter 3. So shall we begin with the invocation?
Yes.
Yeah.
ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
Okay, so now we're on verse 11 of chapter 3, and I'll read out the translation. Lord Krishna says, infuse the devas, gods, with this, and may those devas inspire you. Inspiring one another, you shall gain the highest good.
He has spoken of yajna before, which is fixing a higher ideal.
Yeah.
And the highest ideal is Atman, or self-realization, or enlightenment. But everyone can't conceive of that, can't relate to it, because it's a subtle thing and very high. So what he recommends is that fix a higher goal, which is beyond your selfish, self-centered interests, but not quite the absolute goal. So you focus on maybe community, your organization, your country, or the environment, many things you can work towards, like cleanliness in our country, for instance. And then once, as you sacrifice for it, that goal blesses you. And you see that anyone who works for a higher ideal benefits from it. So that's what he's saying. Deva, God in plural means limited ideals, not the absolute, which is one.
Okay.
And as you work towards the community, then you go higher because you say, why should I work only for my community? Why can't I work for others? And that's how you go higher and higher till you hit the highest. But what is important here is parasparam, this concept of mutuality, that there is mutual giving. It's not a one-way street.
Yeah.
You give and you receive. In fact, you receive much more
Yep.
than what you give. So this is the concept. And parasparam bhavayanta, as you mutually benefit each other, you reach the highest. You keep going higher and higher.
And then in verse 12, Lord Krishna says, infused with yajna, sacrifice, the devas, gods, will give you the desired enjoyments. One who enjoys their gifts without offering to them is a thief.
So he's reiterating the previous verse,
Okay.
where he's saying that the goal will bless you.
Hmm.
Yajna or sacrifice should be the foundation, which means that I must dedicate myself to the organization I work for, let's say, a musician dedicates himself to music, an artist to art. It's not about earning money or name or fame for yourself, because that he's already said earlier, this world is not for the non-sacrificer. So when you sacrifice, that it blesses you, all your desires get fulfilled, and you see that happening.
Yeah, definitely.
And in fact, you benefit more than you would have if you had worked for a selfish purpose.
Yep.
Like there was a police officer in Mumbai. He was an inspector, I think. He did his job diligently. He was not corrupt. And even in society, he was very helpful to people. And you know what happened? He ended up inheriting 3 flats. 3 flats in South Bombay. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
With the salary of his police officer, there is no way he would have been able to afford even one. In Churchgate, he got a flat given to him by his uncle. And an aunt in some Gamdevi gave him her flat. Like that, a third was given to him by somebody else. So you actually see that happening.
Yeah.
And even in corporate life, even when you're running a business, like, people say it's the customer who comes first. If you dedicate your actions, your activities, the whole organization is dedicated to the customer, then you make tremendous profits.
Absolutely.
Because word spreads that your product is excellent. And it's not about advertising and marketing so much as customer satisfaction. Because what a customer can do, billions of dollars cannot do.
Correct.
So when you understand this verse, it's so pervasive
Yeah.
in life.
Yeah. And I think whatever interactions that you have in the world with family, friends, colleagues, at the workplace, I think if we think from a perspective of what is it that I can bring to the table? What is it that I can contribute to the situation to make the situation better? I think if we're able to do that consistently, then it's impossible that you will ever fail.
Yes.
So yes, and it depends on your perspective, right? If we talk about the short term, yes, you may suffer. If you do something, contribute to the organization, sometimes someone else may take credit and get the promotion ahead of you. It happens all the time. We see it in the workplace so often, right? It seems unfair in that particular. If you look at the 1 year window or the 2 year window, or sometimes it's even a longer time, but when you look at your life in its entirety, um it's the person who gives who benefits in the long run, right? And it cannot be denied.
Yes.
So then what happens is happiness, success, material wealth happen anyway. So then why are you worried about yourself, right? The issue is that we are scared that, oh, if I give, then what will happen to me? That is the fundamental issue, right? With selfishness, that is what is driving us. Or if I don't take that piece before someone else does, then I won't get it. That's the mentality,
Yes. But the fact is that desire, or selfish desire, actually comes in the way of your success. And we don't see it.
Yeah.
If we are able to connect the dots, connect what is happening around in the world and in our own lives, we'll be able to see it. It's so clear. And there are moments when we let go of a thing. Like you say, there's only one sweet. You don't have it because you say somebody else might want it. In the immediate present, yes, you suffer.
Yeah.
You don't have it. But lifelong, you live on these principles. My God, the return to you
It's
is
crazy.
Yeah.
We talk about compounding as a principle. It's insane the amount of
Yes.
compounding that will generate, right? In this verse, he ends with one who enjoys their gifts without offering to them is a thief. So can you elaborate on that?
Yes. So the second line of this verse is connected with the next verse.
Okay.
So what he's talking about is sattva, rajas, tamas. And
Okay.
he starts, this line starts with the tamasic person.
Okay.
Tamas is the lowest,
Yeah.
where you enjoy the fruits of other people's efforts without even a thought of repaying. He uses a very strong word. He says, you're a thief.
Yeah.
So when the first time
For the
I
Gita, it's
yes.
a pretty yeah.
So when I first read it, I said, no, but I'm not a thief. But then you think about it and you realize you're enjoying so many benefits for which you haven't contributed even one bit, not even a thought. You're not aware of it and you're certainly not grateful for it. Like we enjoy the coastal road. We've just come by it.
Yeah.
And what we used to go through earlier was nothing short of torture. But how many of us are, see, the first few rides we have, we appreciate it. After that, it becomes normal.
Yeah.
We enjoy so many. Okay, this country has given us peace for so many years, ever since independence, other than one or two wars, which got over in a matter of days. We have generally enjoyed peace, which is not so with other countries. Like when I went to Lebanon, for instance, many years ago in the 80s, I stayed with a family which had a 16-year-old girl who had never gone to school.
Wow.
Because there was a 17-year war. And it was up in the mountains, terribly cold.
Yeah.
There was no electricity. There was no heating in the bathroom. So by the time you brush your teeth, you're frozen. And having a bath was like torture.
Yeah.
Because even though water was heated, things like that, that bring to the forefront that I went to school without even that thought of fear that maybe somebody would shoot me. We have not heard, in my entire life, have not heard gunshots.
Yeah.
I owe that to someone.
Yep.
But that is the thing. The tamasic quality in us just takes things for granted without a thought of how much has gone into it. You eat food. How many of us think of the farmer? What the farmer goes through, and he's so dependent on the rains. Yeah. And if it doesn't rain, he goes hungry for the whole year. We don't think. We eat, we waste, we throw. So that's the tamasic. And then the next verse.
So in verse 13, Lord Krishna says, the virtuous enjoying the remains of yajna, sacrifice, are liberated of all sins. Sinners who cook for themselves eat sin.
This is a fantastic composition. Because let's start with the second, the rajasic. Sinners who cook for themselves eat sin. So this refers to selfish people who act only for selfish ends. So he uses the word cooking as action.
Yeah.
So we work, you take people, they work hard, they earn a lot of money, but do they enjoy it? They don't, because their minds are tormented.
Yeah.
They are agitated, they are in stress, they are unable to sleep. I know business people who, on the face of it, appear so successful. And you get down to the bottom of it, they can't sleep. This is a basic enjoyment of all human beings. If you can't sleep, what's the point?
Absolutely.
But they don't think. So this is typical of a Rajasic person. And then he talks about the Sattvic, which is a fantastic thing. He says, those who eat the remains of sacrifice. So you sacrifice, you give your talent, you contribute your abilities, everything for a cause.
Yeah.
And what do you enjoy? The remains. What is left over after the sacrifice you enjoy? It sounds terrible.
Yeah.
But that is where the magic lies. Because the result of sacrifice is tremendous success, immense happiness, and most importantly, you are purified of sin.
Spiritual progress.
Spiritual growth.
Yeah.
Sin means mental agitation, which come from unfulfilled desires. So desire is the root cause.
Yeah.
So when you work in a spirit of sacrifice, the main thing is that you grow spiritually. The side effect is success and happiness. And that side effect is what the whole world is running after now.
Yeah. No,
It's a brilliant presentation of these three gunas.
Yeah.
And he deliberately puts it in two verses, so that we pause after the previous verse and say, now what next?
Yeah, I mean, such powerful thoughts, and we've spoken about sattva, rajas, and tamas earlier, but it never gets old somehow, right? The presentation, I think Lord Krishna tries to communicate the same thing in many different ways.
Yes.
And on the spiritual path, it's necessary to re-emphasize the message and reinforce the message, because it sometimes, you hit the mind from different perspectives, and then suddenly the penny drops. So as it just shows what a good teacher Lord Krishna is in that regard.
So you see, it's like this. When you say you fix a higher goal, it is your own desire.
Yeah.
Your own higher desire you work towards, and you don't look at fulfilling the lower desires. You forget about money, fame, things like that. But they also come to you. So it's a win-win situation.
Yeah.
Whereas if you work selfishly, you don't get anything.
Exactly.
And this is what we need to understand. So selfishness is not an option.
Yep. Yeah. So with that, I think we're coming towards the end of today's show. Are there some key takeaways that you would like to leave us with?
We first discussed the difference between religion and spirituality. That there are some eternal principles of life that are presented using certain norms for community at that time.
Yeah.
So we need to understand the difference between
And not lose sight of the eternal principles.
Yes. Then you brought about the Kabir ke dohe, which were fantastic.
Yeah.
And it just speaks, and that I think we should focus on dhai akshar prem ke. If we only have this smattering, just a sprinkling of love, it takes care of everything. And then we moved on to the verses. Verse 11 says, you nourish the devas, and the devas will also inspire you. So it's a mutual thing. You work for a cause, and the cause blesses you. And then that's how you keep going higher and higher till you hit the supreme. Then he speaks of when, again, he kind of reiterates that when you work in a spirit of yajna, the gods will bless you with prosperity, with whatever, your desires get fulfilled. And then the second line speaks of tamas, where we enjoy something for free and in abundance without so much as acknowledging it. That is tamas. And then rajas is where you work very hard, maybe you generate a lot of employment, money, so on and so forth, but you don't have the capacity to enjoy. You're a tormented person. The sattvic works in a spirit of service and sacrifice and enjoys the result. What is left over from sacrifice
Yep.
is is what you want actually.
Yep. Some really powerful lessons for us to take back for this week. Maybe we can close with the invocation now.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Some really interesting, powerful ideas for us to, go back and think about and apply into our lives. As always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. And please don't forget to subscribe and share this with family members, friends, colleagues who you think will benefit from it. Yeah. Anyway, see you next week and have a great week ahead. Bye.